Welcome to First Responder Financial Freedom Podcast. We talk to first responders all over the nation who are investing and working on businesses outside of their first responder jobs. Our goal is to motivate and educate each other and help provide a better financial understanding for a better future. Now here are your hosts, Mike Webb, Tyler Thrush, and Aaron Foster.
All right, everybody. This is the First Responder Financial Freedom Podcast. We have Mike Webb, myself, Tyler Thrush, and our very special guest, Mr. Bill Kenny. For those of you that don't know, Bill is Mike's partner, and we're just going to kind of go over his investing journey today.
Business partner.
Oh, yes, business partner. We're going to go over his investing journey and just kind of hopefully you guys can grab some nuggets out of it. So without further ado, Bill, go ahead and introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background on who you are and what you're doing.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks for having me on here. I've been watching you grow this thing, and this is pretty cool. It's pretty awesome. Got a lot of good content and a lot of good guests, and I'm honored to be on here. Guest number 42. I can't believe you took me so long to get me on here, but I'm finally here. So my name's Bill Kenny. I am Mike Webb's business partner. We met, like 8 years ago, maybe something like that, at a RIA event. And
Probably about that.
Yeah, we were both struggling wholesalers at that time. We both had one rental, and we joined forces and started to have some success wholesaling. And I think it was back in 2018, we put a company together and hired some people and started doing everything that everybody talks about on here: flipping, wholesaling, holding rentals. Have a meetup group that's been going strong since 2018. And I'm a full-time realtor as of about 2015. So Mike's been a fireman, as everybody knows. I've been a full-time realtor, and our business has been our second full-time thing going on since we joined up in like 2014 and put our business together in 2018. So that's kind of a little bit about me.
I can tell you when we closed our first deal, because I still have the check stub. It was July 2nd of 2014. It was our first wholesale. And I remember you were still in realtor classes because my oldest was in a car seat, and I drove down there to get the keys to put in the lockbox. But it's been about 2014 where we started doing deals basically on a handshake, and 2018 is whenever we poured some gas on it and kind of built our company.
Yeah. So I'll never forget that deal. That was a fun one. Bandit signs everywhere and running around and
homemade
talking to
bandit signs.
People on our cell phones all day long. People calling directly to my cell phone and all that craziness.
Pro tip: don't put your personal cell phone number on the bandit sign.
Yeah.
That way
City
code
enforcement
can't call you.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah, we had that talk. But no, so yeah, that's a very quick synopsis of a lot of stuff that transpired between then and now. So Bill, you had a W-2 job before you became a realtor. So could you just maybe start? I know you worked in, we'll call it the corporate world after college, and kind of explain how that worked, and then how you transitioned into contract work, and kind of like what happened and the tipping point from that to becoming the full-time realtor.
Yeah. So right out of college, I started working for a company that eventually, a couple of years later, got bought by FedEx and became FedEx Ground. And I was in management, and I worked my way all the way up to senior management, which was basically facility management. So we were, or I was running a terminal or a delivery location, and I had, around Christmas time at that time, back when I was doing it, I had around 100 people under me, which would have been drivers, staff, material handlers.
You were the man. They were working for the man.
I was the top guy at that location. And then we had regional, management that we had to, deal with, but whatever. So I did that from 96 and I left there in 2008. And, it was a great job, but I was working for the man, and it was a slow realization that I was always going to be trading time for money. And over the years, I traded a lot of time for some money. And I look back on what my return on that time was, and knowing what I know now, it was actually terrible. But you really can't go back and change anything. And there were so many good lessons learned, So there's so many things that I take from those experiences, and directly dealing with people, and evaluating people, and dealing with problems, and in some cases dealing with massive problems, without going deep into that. That's a tough business. It's a very tough business. You've got a lot of people, and you know how they say going postal, like the mail never stops. Like you have one bad day, and then you've got to deal with the same amount of volume the next day. And if you don't have the same amount of people, or you have one kind of problem, you got to ramp those people up. It's a people and process business, hardcore. So, I got to the point where that just wasn't working for me anymore. And, I had a young family during that period of time. And there was a period around 2006 where I remember I worked 40 hours in 2 days. And so that was pretty bad. So I got to the point where I just couldn't do that anymore. And I just left. And I left at probably the worst time that you could possibly ever leave. I think it was October of 2008. I had no idea what was going on in the world. I was just this guy that was running a business, just giving his full life effort to this business, and got to the point where just I couldn't do it anymore. And I was going through some tough times in my relationship with my wife, and so I just said that this is not going to make it better. So I just left, and it was a terrible time to leave. But through that process of trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, I stumbled across a lot of things. But I really was listening. I remember I was working for another company at the time, just kind of in the interim. And I was listening to the Dave Ramsey show, and he talked about the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. And it was the first time I'd ever heard about that book. And Dave Ramsey runs counterintuitive to that, but he talked about that as a different philosophy from what he taught. And I thought that's pretty interesting. So I went out and got the book the next day, and I could not put it down. So this would have probably been about 2010. Could not put it down, read it immediately, fell in love with it. And then within 8 months, I just started talking to a bunch of people and found a rental property, went out and bought a rental property, had no idea what I was doing. Turned out to be, not really a good deal, but it was actually probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I was able to do the deal and learn how to be a landlord and start learning, how to evaluate properties, how to deal with tenants, just all the numbers that go into being a landlord. So that property was not a good deal, but it was the first step. It was actually the first step. And then, so there was a long period of time where I, didn't know what I was doing. I was looking on the internet, trying to find my next property. And it was many years. Like it was like 4 years until I really actually got some traction. And I was like, okay, well, what I'm doing is not working. I'm looking, and now we look back on that, like, if you'd had any idea what you were doing, you'd have bought every kind of property that you ever stumbled across, right? But when you don't know what you're doing, you just have no clue. You're just floating around, without any real information. So what I did was I bought a course. I think it was like $500, and I don't remember anything about the course other than it said the first thing to do is go out and join your local RIA association, Real Estate Investor Association. So
it's kind of like a precursor to the meetups, right? Basically, what a lot of people would call a meetup now. There is some nuances that are different about them, but basically, for those not familiar with the terminology RIA, it is basically just a meetup group, but there's like national brand you can work under. But I want to throw that in there. So
I should say I went ahead and just joined it. Called up the phone number, like Googled it, found one where I was at the time. At that time, I'd started working for a defense contractor, doing logistics, doing similar stuff to what I was doing in FedEx. It was during the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War, and I was working for them, and I was doing the logistics for sending the stuff overseas. Still trying to figure this real estate thing out. Joined the RIA, and that was the big opening moment. That's where I met Mike. Probably the first or second meeting. Met tons of great people. Learned how to wholesale in there, and that was really the big step that got me onto the next level of real estate investing. Like I really think like the wholesaling was such an amazing concept for me in 2014 that I was just like, how can I do this? Like, what do I got to do this? And so I just ran out again and just started trying to do it. And I really feel like that was a great idea, because what wholesaling does is it teaches you how to evaluate deals, and it makes you understand the markets that you're in. So those two things are super important when you're going to eventually buy a lot of property or, sell things to investors. You've got to get those numbers right. So that was really the next big step, starting to wholesale and then starting to market.
In about 30 seconds, I know we've covered it, but could you just explain what wholesaling is?
Yeah. So wholesaling is very simply getting a property under contract and then selling that contract, never taking ownership of it, and taking a fee at closing. So you're basically you're putting a property under contract, and then you're assigning a buyer to that contract, and they're taking the place of you as the buyer. And if you do it right, you can take a wholesale fee at closing. So you may put it under contract for $50,000 and then resell it to somebody else, or assign it for $60,000 and take a $10,000 fee at closing. The new buyer takes your place and pays 60 and plus the closing, and you get the 10,000.
A realization I didn't have at the beginning was that there's like two different worlds. There's the world everybody knows, which is the multiple listing service, which is what you see on Zillow and Redfin and stuff from a real estate agent. Most of the guys I work with still think I'm an agent. I don't even try and convince them otherwise anymore. Mm-hmm. But basically what you're saying is you can buy properties direct from the seller. So if Tyler had a house to sell, Bill could go there, put it under contract for $50,000, and then assign your interest in the contract to me for 60. So Tyler gets his 50, Bill keeps 10, and that's typically the wholesale or the assignment fee. A lot of people say that's illegal and whatnot, blah, 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 blah. It's not. It's used all the time. And a lot of folks, I think rightfully so, have a bad taste with wholesalers because a lot of them are not that great. But I just remember being like, wait a second, this was such a foreign concept to me. Like, I can go get a house under contract and then sell it without ever actually buying it. You're not really selling the house. You're selling your interest in the contract, but nonetheless. So, all right. Well, I don't want to spend too much time on that, but I know a lot of people like don't even realize that you can buy a house that's not on the MLS.
That's a really good explanation. That's exactly what it is. The what it does is it allows you to get direct to sellers, like to learn how to speak to sellers. And that's very, very, very important when if you are going to become a realtor, or even if you're not going to become a realtor like I did, like that is the essence of being an investor, dealing with people directly, right? And trying to find a win-win solution for them,
solving their problem.
A lot of times
there's a reason.
There's a reason that's right. There's a reason that they're selling the property. It doesn't matter if it's $1 million property and they have a year to sell it. There's still a reason they want to sell it. It may just be they want to max out their equity or their gain on the property. But in a lot of cases, the people that we were dealing with, and still to this day, these people have a serious problem. The property's damaged. They have another something that has to happen, so they use this property to sell to fix that problem. It just could be anything you could think of. that's the problems that we deal with when we're talking to these people. And wholesaling is a good way to get started if you're a new investor, because you don't really have to own anything, right? You can, when they say, low or no money down or whatever they say, that's actually true in wholesaling. You really don't need any money other than maybe to buy some old signs and write your number on the back of it and say, hey, we'll buy your old beat up, distressed house, other than that. And then your gas money to go stick them in the ground.
Right.
That was it. I mean, that's how we got started. Like we were some of the cheapest guys that you could ever believe getting started. Like we didn't want to spend.
We were literally in Bill's garage with, like the signs they put in front of like a convenience store, like how much the Natty Daddies are, or the carton of cigarettes. We had that sign. It's called chloroplast. We'd flip it over. We'd cut it. We had like a template. We'd cut it. And then we had a stencil we'd lay on there and spray paint. And I mean, you want to talk about ghetto looking, like this thing looked rough, like, but they worked. We sold, we bought our first, or we got our first wholesale with them. And then we sold our first wholesale with them. So, but I think we were too dumb to know any different. Like now I would probably never put them out that looked like that, but too dumb to quit.
On the back of every one of our signs, it said like menthol cools or Marlboro.
Marlboro. Yeah. So, all right. So you became a contract employee, or you were employee for somebody that had a contract with the DoD, or, something like that.
Yeah. We were a contractor for an Army program that.
So you decided while you're doing that, hey, I'm going to go become a realtor. Was that, what was the rationale behind that?
So we started to wholesale together. So we started to learn the market. We started to understand how to talk to sellers. We started to do a couple of deals. And I thought, what I really need to have access to good information to value these properties. And we're also talking to all these sellers, and some of these sellers don't want to sell it for a massive discount. They just want to sell it. And so I thought, well, let me go get my real estate license, because number one, I'll have access to the MLS. So we can run solid comps, right? We at that point, we were trying to lean on different people to do it. And that's not really a good system. You ask another realtor to do it. There's really no benefit in them unless you can work out some kind of trade. So I wanted direct access to the MLS, and then with the potential to possibly sell some of the leads that we were getting on a retail level, which played out very well later on and down the road.
So you start going for realtor class, for, I don't know, realtor school, whatever they technically call it, course.
Yeah.
And either just as you were wrapping up, or because this was just going to be like ancillary business in addition to, right? And as you were wrapping up or getting ready to sit for your test, something changed with your contract job, correct?
Yeah. So that would have been around 2015. The week that I got my real estate license, the government contractor said, we're shutting this program down in 90 days and we need you to close out this building. And so it was the same week, got real estate license, got the notice that we're closing this program down.
Man, talk about a sign.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, this is the sign. Let's do this. So I've never been technically employed since, 90 days after we got that notice at that building, which is, it's the old burn the boats type thing, right? We're not looking back. Let's figure this crap out. And it was hard. It was very hard. If you talk to anybody that's a successful realtor, or, Tyler, from your business, the first 2 to 5 years can be a massive struggle just trying to build that business.
It's brutal. And most people don't make it past that initial phase, but it's like, if you can get past that point, and I'm sure you're this way now, it's like at a certain point, referrals become such a large part of your business, as long as you maintain them and conduct yourself professionally. It's like you're planting a tree, hoping it's going to bear fruit in 5 years. And once it does, it can be a very productive tree. But those 5 years are brutal, man. I mean, it's
very, very,
scratching
very
your way through.
It's like you're pushing a boulder up a mountain like this. And then it's as you start to get, year 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it starts to level off. And then you can actually stop pushing and that ball will just go, because whatever you've done, you've built up so much massive effort that you've put into the universe that it's all finally coming back to you. If you can continue to connect with your database and your past referrals, that referral business goes from like this in the beginning to like this.
But at the beginning, you feel like Sisyphus.
And then you just need to like touch the boulder every once in a while, and try to keep up with it.
so we just kind of grazed over what I know is to be a lot more in that part of it, the story. So you went from basically employed, and within 90 days, you're now the new realtor where everybody's putting their picture on Facebook and, call me for this, call me for that.
Yeah.
And I obviously have the ability to kind of be slightly detached from that part of the journey, but I know probably more than most about it. Mm-hmm. And how I always joke with you, I'm like, man, realtors suck. Like, I'm like, most realtors suck, like, is what I just joke with him about. But there's some truth to it, because like I just saw a condo in Florida hit the market, $400,000, like little 800 square foot as is, needs some work. If you should see the photo, because I always send them like a screenshot of the photo. It's like from the car. Well, this one's from the bedroom with like the shades halfway, like it's horrible, man. So my point is, with the meetup or the RIA, we see it all the time. People come into the business, whether it be a realtor or wanting to be an investor, or maybe both, where they are just amped. They just read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. They just, got off the Dave Ramsey Total Money Makeover or whatever it is. And they are amped. They're ready to do deals. And then within 30, 60, 90 days, a year, the drop-off rate is pretty high, whether it be wannabe investor or wannabe agent. What did you think? Would you say those parallels are similar? Because obviously you've done both. And, what was how did you basically take your realtor business from basically literally struggling, handwriting, making your own signs, renting out rooms in your house, to now it's like you basically, I know we'll get to it, are kind of gating it back a little bit?
Yeah. What it takes is the effort, like we were saying, the effort that you need to put into that business and consistently do the right things. You have to do that nonstop every day for 4 to 5 years if you want to grow that business. If you want to see any success in it, that's where you have to take that effort, and the consistency has to be there. It's just in like your real estate investing business. It's the same thing. If you don't put the marketing out there and follow up with the clients continually to turn and turn and turn, and to continue to build that, that the volume behind it, the pipeline of deals, if the moment you stop pushing, then that pipeline is going to dry up. So you continue to churn and churn and churn. And you have to, whatever those daily activities are, every business has those daily activities, like whatever those 5 things are that you have to do every day. In our case, we have to, follow up with leads. We have to make connections with people. We have to go on appointments. We have to do those things every single day. And at some point, you get a breakthrough, and then, you're in a situation where your business is very solid, but you may be at a point where there's just too much business and you don't have enough time. And then at that point, you have to redevelop your whole business and figure out, if I want to continue to make this kind of money and do this type of business and not spend, 60 hours in the business, how do I look at things differently and do that business differently? And that's the growth of an entrepreneur. Like, if you continue to do the right things, there's basic things that you always have to do. In the beginning, you're doing 100 things, but as your business grows, it squeezes down, and you can get to the point where you're doing those 5 things, and then everything else is built through a system, or people, or a process.
That's basically, you just described the 80-20 principle. So for those not familiar with that term, like 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts, and you need to find what those efforts are. So in this case, it's lead gen, a listing appointment, listing appointment, listing appointment. Those are like two that I know of that are going to be huge. That's the $10,000 an hour task that you can't outsource, right? So you just described, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say in real estate investing and in being a realtor, if lead generation is not at the very top, then your business is probably going to start to fall apart. And Tyler knows this. Like, you have to connect with clients every day. And some of them are going to do business in the next 4 weeks. Some of them may not do business for 2 years. But if you stay connected with them, some piece of business is going to come out of that. And then when you do that business, there'll be referrals and there'll be other good things. So the minute you stop lead generating, that's when your pipeline starts to soften up and slow up. And that's when your business, you'll see if you took a month off, for Christmas, you'll see that in March, you'll have no business being a realtor, being a lender, being an investor. So you can
100%.
never stop connecting with your clientele.
Well, and the hard part is too, you get busy and you're like, oh, I'm making all kinds of money. I'm going to kind of pump the brakes a little bit and enjoy this. And then you go back down, and then it's up, and then it's down.
And that's a great point. Yeah. What happens with a lot of new realtors or just single agents is they're doing a bunch of business. They're working very hard. They get a bunch of business. Then they've got to handle all that business, right? They've got to write contracts and addendums and show things and go to closings, and they got to do all this stuff. And then the lead generation stops. So they're always kind of like this, right? They close the business out, then we got no business. Now we got to start it up again, and then it comes back up, and then we got to do the business, and then we stop lead generating. And so it's always like this. So, how the trick is, once you get to that point, which is very hard to get to that point, that's actually kind of a good problem to have, right? But once you get to that point, how do we level that out? And how do we take the 80-20 principle and look at what 20% of my actions give me 80% of my results, and what 80% of the work still needs to get done, but only provides 20% of the results? Who do we give that to? Or how do we we can give it to a closing company, or we can give it to, this service provider, or we can bring an in-house person. There's a million ways to skin a cat, but that's how you level out your business and get your business to kind of go like this rather than, up and down.
Yeah, basically it's the same thing. And I always equate it to, in fireman speak, like pulling a draft. A lot of people get real close to pulling a draft, and then they let off the primer and goes right back over, and they have to start from square one. That's kind of, like feathering a clutch. It's kind of like wholesaling. You send out all this marketing. Then all of a sudden you start getting deals, which was the goal. And then you're like so busy with deals, you shut down your marketing. And then all of a sudden you disposition all the deals you had. And next thing you know, you don't have any leads coming in. So you have to start over. So it's like constantly trying to pull that prime, right? So
and it's difficult because you as you go, you learn, right? And you understand more, and you figure it out, and you have more conversations. But in the beginning, you don't know what it looks like ahead, and you don't know how to plan for that. So when you get there, that's when you figure it out, and then you constantly evolve and learn. And business is a difficult journey because there's a million ways to do it. And there's a million ways to be successful, but it does take, consistency on those small activities every day to grow that business. And each little business is different.
Like you just said, if you knew all the struggles and kick in the guts you're going to take at the beginning, if you knew that, I bet a lot of people probably wouldn't get started, and there's a saying where it's like, it's going to be harder than you think, but it's going to be better than you thought, So like
that's a great truth to that. That's so true. Yeah.
And I never feel like you never arrive. And I feel like that's something like, this is a slight curveball, but like you always feel like you're going to arrive, like you're going to get to this point and be happy. But I think when you pull it back, like you just realize like that's kind of in your DNA or woven into your fabric. Like you have to be grinding. And I know that's a controversial word. Okay. Progressing. Okay. Yeah. But I was just listening to the Real Estate Reserve podcast with Ian and Jason. and they talked about something that resonated with me, where they talked about you're either in growth phase or execution phase, and you've basically made it whenever those two can exist like in unison. So like you can grow and execute at the same time. And I was like, wow, that's a really good point, because like obviously like we grew and we were executing, and like we were able to onboard. Oh, we got 2 more flips today. Cool. Bam, bam. We stack it in there. We got the capital. We got the crew. We got we were just like firing on all cylinders. And then it's like, then all of a sudden, like you're cruising, and then something happens, some variable changes. And it's like, well, now I'm shutting down growth phase because I have to really focus on execution phase. And then, it's just that constant feathering up the clutch.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So that's kind of what my life looked like for 5 years, kind of up and down, figuring it out, working hard, closing deals, learning. And one of the things that really helped me was getting a real estate coach, somebody that's done it before, and someone that can mentor you through that process. And so I started coaching probably 2019-ish, somewhere in there, or 1920, somewhere at the end of 19. And I got to the point where I had lots of opportunity, and I saw the market was continuing to go up, and I was like, all right, so this is really the time in my realtor business where I really need to like go to the next level. And so what does that look like? So through coaching and conversations, I figured out that I needed to leverage out a lot of tasks. So I hired a virtual assistant, and that's tough because there's a lot of things you don't know about when you bring that person on, but you lean on your network and you do the best you can. And so then I had to build a lot of systems for that person to come into my business. And once I got that person who's still in our business and is a great business and a great person, once I got him up to speed, then things really took off at that point, because now I gave away all of those things, like the contracts, the compliance, the websites, the MLS, the transaction coordination, all of that was on him. And it took about 4 to 5 months to get him up to speed to where he was doing that. We put the systems in place, and then I saw explosive growth in my realtor business. It exploded almost 3 times at that point, because I could actually focus on dealing with people, going on listing appointments, closing deals over and over and over again. And so it exploded in 2021. My GCI went up almost 3 times. I was averaging around 5 to 6 million in closed volume. That was just, whatever come. And I pushed it up over 12 million in just 1 year. So that was like 117% increase in volume in just that 1 year, just from getting the right people, being coached, getting the right person in my business, putting some systems in it, and then following up on, or not really following up, but doing those tasks that you need to do every day to grow your business, concentrating on the 20% that gives you the 80% of the results.
So from outside looking in, it's funny, and we were all in the same mastermind. That's the differentiation, I think, between what we would say, like, like a gold or a platinum and investor fuel, or like however you want to phrase it, is myself included. What you just said, I'm like, you have to create all these processes and then train somebody. But the reality is, had you never done that, you would never have been in the position to where you guys are now. Like, I can see outside looking in, oh, hey, volume ramped up for Bill, volume ramped up for Mike and Bill, but you guys took the time to implement those things. For myself, I hate training people. It is what it is. But I also have to be comfortable knowing that I am the reason that I will never be completely free of my own time because of my attitude towards that. And earlier this morning, I texted Stinson. I was like, I just hired another VA. This sucks. Because I know I'm going to have to train them. And it's like, well, if I don't, it's never going to bear fruit. And just listening to what you said, I remember when you guys, or specifically when Bill started with that VA, and then looking back now, and it's like, yes, it's a little painful, but I think now looking back, you're like, damn it, why didn't I do that a few years earlier?
Yeah. I felt sorry, Mike. I felt the exact same way that you described, Tyler. That was very painful for me. That was hard. Like, in my head, I know how to do all that stuff, but I actually had to sit down, and it was a painful task to sit down and get that all out on paper, to put those processes in place to at least give him something to start with. And then once we got about 60, 70% of it out, then he could fill in all the gaps and he could build the rest of the process as we continually talk and have conversations about, hey, you missed this, but that's okay because I didn't tell you to do it, just add to the list. And we just continue to build those systems. But really that 2 to 3, 4 month period where I had to get everything out of my head onto paper, that was a struggle and very difficult. And you just got to do it. I mean, some of us are, some of us are the integrator and some of us are the entrepreneur or whatever it is. And it's easier for some people to do it. And some of us, it's just not in our DNA. But if we're going to do it ourselves, if we're not going to hire, leverage out or hire a company to do that for us, then we just got to suck it up and do it. And it's hard, but the dividends are there, as we can see.
Yeah, I don't know too many people that are like, yes, I get to train a new person from scratch. But I was just listening to an episode of the Brad Lee show. I just kind of got started on that, but he was interviewing this gentleman who's an international pilot, and he was just talking about, like, why do most people dread that? It's because they have no system to onboard or train somebody. And one of our mutual friends, Josh Hines, said something to me once. He's like, dude, it just needs to be system 1.0. It does not need to be the iPhone 15. Start with the iPhone 2 and then upgrade it, go to the 3, then the 4. And basically what he was saying is, like, get something on paper. Start with, what is the process to put this house on the MLS? I'm probably going to forget a couple steps, like you just said, 60 or 70%, but I got system 1.0. Oh, we did 3 or 4 and we realized we forgot this, and this. Oh, we'll just update it. Now we got system 2.0, same concept. And I've applied that to a lot of things now. And now it takes something that is a very daunting task and has kind of made it a little more digestible to me. And, we've talked about storage a lot, or we've talked about lending a lot. There's new systems right now that we're needing to create that basically we're having to do the same thing all over. But if we do it right and we make those small tweaks now, it'll be a lot easier than just letting this big ball of mess get created and then trying to sort it out. So,
and when we're doing it, it's difficult because we're still trying to keep up with the business that we have, right? All that stuff still got to get done. And then you're putting stuff on top of that. So that is a daunting task. But the one thing you can take solace in is that you can find good people. It's not like that person, you're teaching them how to talk and you're teaching them how to walk. They come with a skill set, right? You can hire the right person and you can have them take it, you can give them stage 1, stage 2, and they can take, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 as they grow with it. So there's a lot of things that we just kind of put in there and say, it's going to be awful. It's going to be hard. Yeah, there's some of that, but if you hire the right person, they can help you, get there a lot quicker.
When you have the mindset shift of the book by Dan Sullivan, Who Not How, that's just such a freeing concept. And while it seems super simple, like hiring somebody to do QuickBooks data entry, it's just like, there's people that like that and that are much, much better at it than you are.
Yes.
So it's just like, wow, instead of sitting there stressing out how to figure out how to market and put this stuff on social media and do all this thing, guess what? There's people that for a fair rate will do an amazing job and do it for you. Like, pick the task, change your oil, rotate your tires, cut your grass, whatever it is, So Bill, one thing I know your real estate coach, you talked about that. So one thing we've talked about on this show before is just the investment in education. And I just feel like that's something that you can never go wrong with. But I would say in the law enforcement, firefighter, first responder space, it is fairly unheard of to sit there and say, like, I'm going to go hire a business coach, or I'm going to go hire a real estate coach.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just kind of like quickly summarize, like, what does that look like? Does he come to your house wearing a whistle, tell you to do push-ups, or like, do you meet, like you meet online, like, and you don't have to give specifics, but like $1 in, how many dollars out did it produce roughly? Like, cost you $1, you got 10 back type thing. And I think because a lot of people view it as a cost and not an investment.
Yeah. Well, I haven't really sat down and looked at it from that standpoint, but I understand what you're saying. Like, so you think about it this way: what I get is I get a weekly conversation, and I can set it up however I want to, and here's what I need in my business, or here's what I need you to help me with, or this is what I'm looking to do. Like, always point me in the right direction and help me understand if this is the direction I need to go in, because I've not been down this road and you have. So this is what I think I need to do. And, we'll just have a conversation around that. And, accountability is huge in this business. If you don't have somebody looking over your shoulder or checking up on you, it's easy to get really off course and get a little bit lazy. So having someone point you in the right direction and then hold you accountable is huge. So very quickly, if you look at where I was, just kind of struggling around, doing 5-6 million every year. And then I was able to do 12 million after I got a coach. Would I have hired a VA if I didn't have a coach? Who knows? Would I have put all these systems, had help leveraging out systems and setting this person up? I don't know, but I can tell you, I had a coach a year, and then I saw that explosive growth, and it was more than worth what I paid for it. And we haven't talked about this, but there were other lessons I learned during 2021 about where I wanted my business to go in the future that kind of changed what I did after that year. And,
so let's talk about that, because you went from, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to every time I turn around, you're in Puerto Rico or something, so there was a big growth there. And, there was a lot of work, and there was a lot of kick in the teeth to get there. Like I know that. And like we said, most realtors don't last more than a year or two because of all the kicks in the teeth, but the ones that see it through, just like with, I would say, most businesses or careers, the first couple of years are a struggle, right? But you went through this exceptional growth, even with systems, even with processes, even with good people surrounding you. You kind of took a look around and said, hey, this is great, but this isn't necessarily the vision I have, or whatever you want to call it. So maybe talk about how that changed during that craziness.
Exactly. So and even with it's not like, I was able to build these systems and bring these people on and my life got easier. No, I continued to have to do those tasks. I had to continue to go on appointments. I had to continue to close deals. I had to continue to follow up. I had to continue to go meet people at their houses. In a lot of cases, I had to, help them get their properties fixed up for sale. That was a kind of a unique value add that I had for people. So there's a lot of activity that goes along with that. And during that year, and I'd say the last 2 years, as I grew that realtor business extremely heavily and grew it out, I decided that that's not really where I want to go with my future. And so Mike and I continued to reevaluate our business, and I reevaluated my realtor business, and we just really we just really wanted to get a lot more passive. We didn't want to be transactional and running around all the time. And although those businesses you can do extremely well, and you can systemize those businesses, there's still a big part of that business where it requires you to be in control. You know, you're steering the ship, you're making the decisions, we're actively doing things. And we decided that we're going to actually steer the ship in a different direction. And part of that was steering away from being a realtor. So I've talked with my coach about this and how we can do it, and just refer that business out. Just refer it away. Like, continue to touch your database, continue to be in the business, continue to be a realtor, but I can refer that business out, and it can be very, very much more passive. And the other two things that we found through networking and friendships and education and learning was that we wanted to buy storage. We wanted to stop buying multifamily, and we wanted to buy storage. And we had started to do some lending, and so we created Jump Capital, and we're a private lender. We're, hard money lender, I guess you could say. But we identified those two businesses as a way for us to continue to be exactly who we are, but to continue to grow ourselves, but to continue to grow our business in those two arenas, and kind of get away from more of the transactional stuff. Yes, we have to do tasks inside of those businesses, but long term, we feel that those are much more passive than all of the things that we've done leading up to those points.
Real quick too, because I know we there was a question the other day in the group, and when you were talking about this, made me think. Somebody said, "Why is wholesaling good?" or something to that effect, and you mentioned it at the start. Wholesaling is so vital because all the deals that you guys have underwritten, and you've seen all of these things over and over and over again, gives you the confidence to go be a lender, because guess what? You already know how to underwrite the deal. You know how the entire process works. And I know
right.
that the intent of that post was to kind of generate conversation. And for me, although I'm not a huge fan of flipping and wholesaling right now either, because it is so time intensive and I want to do private lending and things that I enjoy, but had you guys or myself not taken the time to get really good at wholesaling, you would have had to learn a whole new skill set. Now you guys have this massively valuable skill set, and you say, how are we going to apply this skill set into a new facet that is so much more passive? And you guys found two, like you said. So
yeah,
just wanted to point that out, because somebody put that in the group the other day, and I'm like, hey, wholesaling is vital to learn, in my opinion. You don't have to do it forever.
That is a great point, because we meet people that all the time, like Mike said earlier, that are just getting started. They don't have any idea of what's down the next corner, right? We've already been through the woods and back again and did it 12 times. So we can already take the skill set that we've learned and apply it in a new business that's very similar. Like you say, underwriting deals is underwriting deals. Do the variables change? Do more zeros on the end, different people involved? Yes, but there's still a skill set to doing that. And you can do it once you've figured it out. So underwriting a hard money deal is the same as underwriting a wholesale deal, right? The ARV is the same. The rehab is the same. Do you have to provide a little bit more security for yourself as the lender? Yes, because you're not the actual operator. But all of those things are doable. And you set yourself up in the driver's seat when you're the lender. Like, you can decide how much you're going to put into the deal, and you give yourself security on the back end by getting the right documentation and setting it up.
At the end of the day, like we've said, we have a meetup group that we've been running for 4 years. So like we've been pouring into that for, like we've just making deposits for years into that. And not that we have not benefited, but so have many, many of our folks that attend. But it's one of those, like we talked about, we're doing things that are 20% of the work to get 80% of the result. We could technically make more money if we just kept flipping, but it's at a cost for your time and frankly, your sanity. So we've just shifted gears to where at the end of the day, like you can have a deed of trust and all this stuff, but like the relationship is what is super valuable. And I have folks from this group, other firefighters, police officers that have trusted me based on the relationship we have to invest in some of these deals. And some of these I have my own money, some of it's just theirs, etc. But it's like they're betting on you, and it is your job to sit there and underwrite that deal. And even if things go sideways, you're going to fix it because you have underwritten all those deals in your area. You have that network in your area. And that's why, like, we're not focused on lending in Michigan, right? We're in our corridor because this little envelope, like Bill just said, he went from being a realtor doing 5 or 6 million in volume to 12 million in volume. In realtor speak, that's pretty good. Like in our area, that's really good. Now, maybe in Southern California, maybe it's not. I don't know. You know, it's just, but so like we have that local institutionalized knowledge where it's like we never would have had that though, had we not started with the spray painting, the menthol cigarette, natty daddy signs. And it's just like along the way, you know, one of my favorite quotes, and I mean, I wear it out, is just go as far as you can see. And once you're there, you'll see a little bit further. And like, I could have never imagined being the lender. Like I have an appointment here in 50 minutes where I have to go wire money for a deal. Like I never would even, that would never even crossed my mind when we first started, you know, but now it's like, if you stick with it long enough, like you will be successful as long as you don't quit. Are you going to get kicked in the teeth along the way? Absolutely. Sometimes multiple times before lunch. It just, that's any of this is going to require that. But, sorry, went on a little tangent there.
Yeah,
but.
no, that's very true. And you and I know how many deals that we've done where you know, we just did what was right. Like, was it painful? Did it cost us money? Did we not make as much money? But we always did what was right. And I feel like those kind of things going into the lending are where it's at, right? It's like, if you're taking somebody else's capital and you're placing in a deal, then you need to communicate with them, and you need to make the payments on time, and you need to stay in touch with all parties. You need to have your hands on the deal. Like you have to. And as we grow it, you know, we'll have a lot more, you know, deals to keep our hands on, but that's our duty to our capital investors. So we're going to continue to do all the same things we did in our business when we were dealing with a homeowner. We told them we were going to close, you know, December 22nd, regardless of what happens. We may assign somebody, we may close on it ourselves. We don't know, but we will tell you this right now: we're going to close on it. And so we're going to take that same approach into these new businesses.
So there's I mean, that's a whole episode in itself talking about that. But if you were to go back and basically tell your younger self, and this is kind of like a hybrid because Aaron's not here to ask these questions, but like, what would you, I guess maybe as that young guy that just graduated college, starting with FedEx, what advice would you give him? And then what advice would you give the investor, Bill, that started about 8-10 years ago? If you could know something at that point, like what would those two things be?
You know, I mentioned that earlier, that there was a period where I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I stumbled across a book and I read it, and it lit me up. And then there was a 4-year period where I couldn't figure out what to do next. So I think if you can figure out what direction you want to go in, like, you know, you want to go west, right? You don't know exactly what street you want to go on. Finding some kind of good mentor or network or a coach or something like that, and latch onto that and ask tons of questions and help them pull you along in that direction. Because I think that's what I really lacked back then. Like it took me 4 years from when I bought that first house to buying the second house. And what it was stumbling into that network and learning new strategies and meeting new people and being re-energized and you know, leading us to start marketing. And then we had deals right in front of us. Like we were like, well, let's just buy the damn thing, which we didn't have that up until that point. So I would say finding some accountability partner, a mentor, someone that's been down that road, a coach, whatever you want to call it. That stuff, like even if you got to pay for it, that is valuable. But then on the backside of that, you got to listen to it. And you got to do what they say, right? You're not going to get there just by, holding on to the back of their coattails. Right?
If I go sit in the waiting room at the gym, I'm not going to get in shape.
Yes,
I actually have to go work out.
That's what I'm doing wrong
then.
then.
Weights every day. Every day you got to pick them up. And so, yes, you have to do, but don't just do anything, because sometimes a lot of the stuff you're doing doesn't amount to any success. I know how many people, it's funny, but like you become a realtor and they're like, oh, I got to get my business card. They spend a whole day designing the business card. Nobody gives a shit about your business card. Pick up the phone and start calling somebody, do the things that matter. So I would say
that was an excellent little snippet to pull right there.
It's perfect. And Andy Frisella says that too. He says, you're not doing a good enough job of telling people what you do if you need a business card or if you need your name on your desk.
Yeah, that's so true. Yep. So that's what I would say. As far as going back to out of college, go enjoy yourself. Go to Cancun and then spend a month down there and then come back and then start figuring out what you want to do.
He's just kidding, Liam, in case you ever listen to all these. So no, right. I mean, that's good, man. And God, if you could go back and just only kind of make a couple tweaks, wouldn't it be nice? But
yeah.
I never regret any of the stages of it.
The way, but you don't want to trade.
Correct.
Yeah.
So where do you see the next 12 months going with your business? I know we just kind of hit on it, just leaning more into the lending side of things and referring out the realtor. Or are you just going to kind of keep your finger on the pulse?
So yeah, I'm going to, so the one thing I didn't say was, when the way I built my realtor business was being an investor agent. And so I was always talking to investors. And so what I saw was I did lower volume, but I did more volume, right? The investors were coming back and they were, buying it here and then they were fixing it. And I was doing 2 deals. And so a lot of that came through our marketing and then people we met at the meetup group and things like that. But over time, in 2021, I saw my referral business get really big. It was almost like 65-70% of my business, because it starts to turn over time. You're actively trying to meet people and you're doing deals, but all those people go into your database and then they start referring you stuff, and then you start to see that grow. So that referral business is still there. I'm still doing deals. I'm referring some stuff out, but I'm still doing some of the stuff that I deem, doable or to match what I want in my life. Right. I don't know how to say that, but, and then referring the other stuff out. And then continuing to do the same things that I did for that business to grow our lending business, continue to connect with people, continuing to network, continuing to touch our database, continuing to talk about it, and continuing to do good deals and make people happy, right? Put people in your database that are happy customers.
That's like the old Jim Rohn quote: "You can have anything in life you ever wanted as long as you help enough people along the way." And while that's
so true,
maybe some people might consider that cheesy, it's friggin' true as shit, man.
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly.
Tyler, do you have a question?
No, I would say, it's like you're going to apply all the same lessons you guys have already learned in the previous aspect to the new business. Now you feel more comfortable pressing it, and hey, we're going to have SOPs for the lending business, for the storage. You've already seen proof of concept on that, which I think is the biggest hurdle. So I would anticipate a much quicker ramp up for both businesses as opposed to your guys flipping and wholesaling, just purely because of that.
Yeah. Go
ahead.
I was just gonna say, we already have all the components that we've already built in these other businesses that we can lean on and continue to work to find people to work with and make win-win situations happen.
I was just going to say the other leg of that stool we didn't even touch on is the owner finance stuff we've been doing, kind of like along Travis Oglesby's episode.
Yeah.
We've got a handful of those, and we're kind of,
we're still in love.
We'll call it
we are still in love with that strategy. And
we had a personnel setback, we'll
that.
call it. So we're trying to navigate those waters, but I still think that's going to be over the next 12 to 24 months, a very integral part of our wealth building strategy. So especially with the market we're kind of in and going into, whatever. So, but maybe we'll break down a case study of one of those, because I know I posted about one a while ago and a lot of people had questions, and frankly, Bill has been the point man on a lot of that part of the business. So it might be good maybe to throw one up here. Here's the before, here's the after, here's how we evaluated, here's what we're doing, here's what worked, what didn't work, what we learned. Because, that's one of those, like, man, that you want to talk about the first time you go to a RIA and hear about wholesaling and you're like, what? The first time I realized, like, wait a second, I can assume a mortgage at 3.75 right now when rates are 7. Something's gotta be wrong here.
I would say that I had the exact same feeling about the owner finance deals that I did with wholesaling that first time around. I was like, this is amazing. How fast can we do this?
How quick can I buy 40 of these? We're going to have to leave them hanging, and you're going to have to tune back in to hear that episode. But is there anything else you had, Tyler, or anything else you want to say, Bill, before we wrap this up?
Nope.
Thanks, guys. I think you guys are doing a great service here. Connecting first responders to all these great investors and all these great strategies. I think it's an amazing thing, and I know that people are coming away from this, making great connections and learning things and taking their life to a new place. So good job, guys.
Well, thank you. And thanks for hopping on. And if people wanted to connect with you or follow you, where's the best place to do that?
You can find me on Facebook, Bill Kenny, Instagram, Bill Kenny, REI, or just freaking call me, 301-707-1678.
There you go. I saw that in a truck stop once. No, all right, guys. Well, that's all we got. This episode 42. So we're only 10 away from actually knocking this thing out for a year, which we've had a couple of touch and go moments. Thanks for bearing with us. And as we've been saying, if you're interested or know somebody that'd be able to provide value to the community, please absolutely get in touch with one of us so that we can get you scheduled for the show. We have a couple cool ones coming up, and we'd love to fill out the rest of 2022, bring in some people that you want to hear about. So that's all I got. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks again for spending some time with us today. If you found value in anything you heard, please share with someone who may benefit. We look forward to connecting between shows in our Facebook group, First Responder Financial Freedom. Till next time.